Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and I was going to do an overview review of Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, but I'm still a couple episodes away from finishing that complete watch for the second season, so I'm punting it for a couple of weeks, and then instead going to talk about VIII Nordics. Now, I've talked about VIII a lot, twice in fact, because it's good. It's very good. VIII is considered the best one, and I agree, because it feels like two Ys games in one. I talked about VIII, which went for a much darker kind of sea vibe and kind of disturbing presence, but it had some cool moments. I think it was the abilities that you can use around the town and doing fun things with them, but I think it was kind of let down by the story. VIII goes kind of back more towards the sense of adventure and learning new places and seeing new places and doing things rather than being in a cramped kind of closed off claustrophobic city. And that is to its credit, but there are things about Nordics that still, like, when you consider the wide scope of VIII, they still haven't kind of recaptured that. There are definitely things about 10 that work, and I think it mostly has to do with combat and just the way that has changed. And I do like the new main character. Not at all. I like, Adol is the main character, but he's just a conduit to tell a story because he's the silent protagonist. He's there to be moved to do sword things. So, anyway, so Adol goes about his business with Dogi, who again is not able to be used as a fighter in these games. And it's been like 20 years at this point. So they're palling around, and I think in the storyline, because it dips and dunks and goes around different corners, this is kind of set kind of after they first meet, and they're going off to Salsetta, which is where the new version of 4 starts. So they're going there to do what happens in Ys 4. So while they go about their business sailing around, they happen upon the Ovelia Gulf, and they kind of get besieged by pirates. So Norman pirates, and particularly Karja Balta, voiced by Jeremy Lee. And she just is like, yo, you're a sword fighter, are you? That's great. Here's my axe. Let me stab you. Or you can stop. Well, knowing Adol, he's not going to just say no. So they get into a fight. And then they fight them off. And then they go about their way to kind of like the one town in the entire game. So kind of not even a hub, sadly, because it doesn't last long. So they go to that town and stuff happens. And I think this game forces... One of my biggest issues is I think it, because you only really have 2 characters, but they kind of want to go in the way Ys 8 did, where you gather characters and have them in, like, not in your party, but have them available. They really want you to kind of care about support characters, and honestly, I never really did. You know, like, building a town and doing that stuff is fine, and I guess it shows some sort of initiative to do a thing. But a lot of the people that you meet in this town are dealing with this set of monsters known as the Grieger. That's who the Norman are fighting as well. It's been explained that only Mana can kill them, because otherwise you just stab them and nothing happens. So Adol ends up finding this disembodied voice who grants him the power of Mana, and Karja as well, because she just happened upon there to investigate. So they end up getting kind of fused together with these set of magical mana handcuff things. So for the 20-25 hours that you're playing this game, they're basically tied together. And there's a few funny gags about, like, what if I need privacy? What if I need to sleep? What do I need to go to the bathroom? So it's like the first hour is just them kind of coming to grips with basically being together for the entire thing. And even some of the other Norman pirates are just laughing at them sometimes and be like, oh, you're together, are you? Well, this is great, because Karja is just, I'm good by myself, thanks. And then the other people are like, no, this is a good opportunity to learn how to have teamwork and shit like that, because teamwork is special and all that junk. So that also ties into the main mechanic of the battle system, because for ever since VII, they have been focusing on different attack styles and having two sets of two. In most cases, two sets of two characters that can kind of specialize in set attacks, blunt, slash, and pierce. But they scrap all that in lieu of a duo mode, a duo system. So you can attack with Adol by himself, you can attack with Karja by herself, or you can have them both working in tandem and doing things. And the duo mode is kind of the game's selling point, other than, being an ace game and being really good at combat shit. The idea is that you can kind of work around it, or you can go in a duo mode and do, like, damaging stuff. So you're a lot swifter as a single party member, but you can do a lot more damage if you're in duo mode. So you still got your guards and you've still got evasive maneuvers and other things, but now you have separate skill trees together and separate that you're kind of building, and you have to kind of work in concert with the two characters and making it. And Ys has been nothing if not spectacular when it comes to very fast combat, very swift things. And much like Ys 9, everything looks like they have these flashing lights and flashing reds and flashing blues, and it's all kind of cool in that, like, early PS3, like, we're a generation behind and we know it because we're a small studio kind of way. So is it going to win any awards from a design perspective? Not really. I mean, they kind of changed the game with the traversal mechanics all around the city, but they dumped that for a different system, which I kind of agree with, because if you add that, you're doing so much freaking crap to the other game that you have to set up. And I always felt Ys 9 was more about the traversal rather than learning about the characters and things. I think this is trying to kind of get back some of that while still trying to be a brisk adventure. So what I do appreciate is that while you're going about dealing with these Grieger and these, like, highly intelligent undead Grieger things, Adol is dealing with this side story of this old man in this, like, hidden part of the world, in kind of like this dream state he's dealing with. This old man befriends him, and you slowly kind of figure out, oh, okay, this character that they've been talking about forever, it might be this guy, and they might know each other and stuff like that. So there's a story involved that you slowly get them to meet, and then you wonder, okay, this is why we did that. Because there's, like, okay, Karja's not telling you everything about her, but you're revealing things because you have to be together forever. You have to kind of just deal with basically this nice as hell silent protagonist guy who's, like, doomed to constantly adventure. This begrudgingly annoyed woman who just doesn't want to be around, but then slowly is like, oh, you're not so bad because you stab things really well. They slowly get there. But you're lugging around other people, and I think that's my biggest issue is instead of having a castaway village, instead of having, raids in the monstrum zones and whatnot, you kind of have naval battles. So you do raids some of the time, but their way of doing that, and their way of kind of doing the Ys 8 raids, the Ys 9 monstrum fights, is to have ship combat. So while the majority of the game is just adult and cars just stabbing and slashing things, you can also take a ship, the Sandra, and you steal it. You get away from the main town that gets destroyed. You're going off on all these adventures. Got a little small islands here and there, rather than like one big hub world. You're dealing with smaller scale islands and things. You're doing initiations. You're finding treasure. You're going off and doing side questy bullshit. Or you're going to find like 3 main villain types. These like highly intelligent Grieger beings that are taunting you or cursing you and shit like that. They kind of weave in and out of the plot, and I was kind of expecting more out of them, but they are just there as kind of your roadblock bosses. The real meat of the story is trying to find Leela and this main old guy. Leela's whole story is that she's been chained up in this palace and can't leave by these Grieger beings, and you have to just find another area and have her reunite with this person known as Rollo, who they like. She's just this like weird priestess lady who's lived forever, and he's this old curmudgeonly, just basically Gilgamesh type figure, this heroic figure of mythic being. Not the Final Fantasy Gilgamesh. That guy's a dope in the best possible way. I'm talking the super crazy, painful, mythic kind of Gilgamesh, and you start realizing that they were an item. You start realizing that the power of Rollo is kind of this crazy, all-encompassing, like, he was the best of the best, and we want him back. That's kind of the aim of the Grieger beings, is to turn somebody into that. Basically, give that power back to somebody so that they rule over the seas of this Norman region, because that guy's power is immense. So Leela's trying to stop it. Leela's trying to find this Rollo person and basically just reunite. So they're kind of all caught in these weird webs of mystery and mess in the swift East way, where it's not, oh my god, there's so much stuff, there's so much intrigue. It's enough. I would say this game is enough. Just like the ship combat is enough. If you've ever played Pirate Yakuza, I would say that is a more thorough version of this is a pretty streamlined, straightforward pirate ship building thing. There are going to be a lot heavier games that do a lot more with pirate combat. This one is, okay, I've got some health bars, I've got some cannons, I've got some guns, I'm shooting some stuff, I'm going to these islands. That's fine. It's cool in theory. But in execution is, it's East. So you're not going to get the deepest thing in there. You have the majority of the game to do these small little side quests and main plot things. And no dungeon is going to take forever. So I kind of appreciate that. I kind of appreciate that nothing is like so crazy important that you have to go out of your way to do it. My biggest issue, I think, is not so much the story or the characters or anything like that, because again, I'm always going to compare it to 8, and I really shouldn't, because every game is different. And I know that was kind of a lightning in a bottle situation where they almost had like 2 East games tacked on to each other, and it just worked, right? So it's like East 9 and 10 are just going to be 20, 30 hours, boom, done. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's been a thing in the last couple of games, and I don't know why they do it, and I don't know if this is something other games do, but I've seen Yakuza do this somewhat, but to a lesser extent. And I don't know if this is going to get changed in the Nordics, the Proud Nordics re-release or expansion. But for whatever reason, and this might only be the dub version, right? So take that in mind. Say you have a cutscene, and a big ass cutscene. you're meeting Karja's father, or you're doing the thing, and you're fighting the whatever, or you're talking to your friends on a ship or whatever. You do like a normal voiced cutscene, a long voiced cutscene, 5 minutes or so. But rather than finish that cutscene, they do this thing, and Ys 9 did the same thing to a lesser extent. But it became really obvious in one of the main early things with Karja's father in this like big announcement hall. They're doing this big freaking announcement thing. And he's doing the talking, and he's doing the talking, and he's doing the talking, and then they stop. So you're expecting you get your control back, but what ends up happening is the story keeps going. The announcement and the banquet and the whatever special occasion thing keeps happening, and they keep talking, but it's no longer voiced. So I don't know why they do it, and it happens several times through the game. It's worst during that early stretch where they're doing a scene voiced, and then they switch to the same scene without voices to finish it up, which takes another 3 to 5 minutes. So you're doing half and half. Well, why not just not voice the part or do it all voiced? I don't get it. And I didn't get it in Ys 9, and I don't get it now. I get it if you're doing like text boxes, but Ys 9 and 10 don't use text boxes. They have the text crawl along the bottom of the screen. So it's very cheap. It looks very cheap, and if you've played 9 or played 10, you'll know what I'm talking about, where they kind of cut corners. So I don't know if that's how it is in the Japanese version. Maybe it's just this way in the English one, where they didn't want to dub enough, which doesn't sound right. They don't sound like they would only dub half the game. This is not a Atelier after all, where they don't even dub it anymore, right? But it was kind of just awkward. And that's the game in a nutshell to an extent. It's more in line with kind of the environment and the scope of something like an Ys 8 or an Ys 7. But it seems like it cut corners. Now, whether that changes in Proud Nordics, where they streamline everything, but they keep, they streamline it, but expand on it in the same time, where things are tighter, it's a better experience. Like, the combat's great. Everything else around the game, though, like the music and the battle system. Ys has always been great at music, always been at battles. It's everything around it that kind of defines whether an Ys game is really good or not. And this is, like, serviceable, right? So I don't know what Proud Nordics is going to give me. So you're still getting a 20-hour game, and maybe you add 3 to 5 in this Proud Nordics bit. So from what they're telling me, it's a different side story. Honestly, I wish they would have expanded more of the main story and stuff about the characters. That's what I'm hoping they do, rather than introducing more. But they're going to introduce newer characters. I don't know if that's really necessary. I think if you expand on what you had and try to fill in some story gaps, or like reactions to things, or stay away from the friends in the fucking ship stuff, because that's really what drags the game down. Is like, you're here for Adol and Karji. You don't really care about, Dogi's fine. He's been in the game series forever. He's your conduit for stuff outside the story. It's fine. Even if he doesn't play any major part in battle, he's still there. But it's when they try to introduce other people that I'm like, why do I care about this random barmaid? Why do I care about this dude from the militia? Why do I care about this guy who does this thing? And you're introducing 5 or 10 other dopes that are their age as if they're friends. And I'm like, I'm not your friend, buddy. I don't care about you. Let me get back to the stories I do care about. Like, we're not castaways. What I did appreciate about Ys 9 was they didn't do that, where your story was kind of centralized on 7 or 8 people in the party, and that was it. You didn't have to really bother with side crap. So they were trying to split the difference and trying to add characters that really were one-note jokes or one-note people that didn't really matter much. Like, the main people don't even get a lot of story stuff. Like, Karja does. Her dad does. I'm cool with, fleshing them out. But fleshing out the random people you save from the disaster in the town, I don't care, And I'd rather learn more about the main bad people and, their story, because they felt half-baked. So whether Proud Nordics does that, or they just expand a story and then say, hey, you go to this thing for 2 or 3 hours and you learn about these new people. I'm like, then you go back to the main story. Okay, I guess that's fine. It doesn't change that the game is kind of there. And being there is not the indictment I'm making it out to be. The game is still fine. It's good. It's an East game. There's no bad East game, right? But when you have such a tight, expansive world that 8 was, every subsequent release that feels like it's only 20 to 25 hours seems kind of there, right? So, my hope is that they tighten the ship and they do a lot more with the story they're trying to tell. But they may not do that. They might be expanding to a different story, which I suppose, given the sense of adventure with going on a pirate ship and learning things, is great. But even going on pirate ships, the invention of the combat, the going to different islands to do bosses, it's basically just do a dungeon. You're not exploring anything. You're just finding treasure. So they don't wholly it's not like a Wind Waker thing where you're just go. No. It's more like Pirate Yakuza, where you do a thing, you find a treasure, then you leave, and it's done. It's like, well, both games are iffy. But if you're going to give me the choice of, do I want to be with Adol or do I want to be with Goro Majima running a pirate ship? Give me Goro Majima every 5 or 10. Give me that for 5 or 10 extra hours, or 20 hours. There's more fun to be had with Yakuza doing this sort of thing. I think I give them the praise for trying something new. Ace has always been able to change their battle system, even though I was liking the multiple party members and multiple attribute attacks and stuff. Trying the duo system and finagling with that system and doing traversal mechanics with these two, centralizing on the two, made it work, because Adol was by himself for so many games. But then for about 10 or 12 years, you just had 3 characters. It was always 3. It was always there. So it felt contrived. Now they did something different, and they're focusing on the 2, and that's all you get. And I'm like, okay, this feels like a change in the system. Something that I've always wanted other games to do was, if you have a system, you should keep at it for 3 or 4 games, and then you'd be like, let's try something different. We gave it a good 10 years of a cycle, and then we're going to try something new. What they do with the duo system after, I think they're going to keep up with it, because this game series is not going to go anywhere. It's one of the longest running franchises there ever was. Just 87, right? 88-ish. And they've managed to always kind of try something. But when they stick to an idea that works, they'll give it a few games to flesh it out until they can't really do it anymore, but then make a big deal out of trying something new. The combat in this game is kind of the draw. So if you like, flashy action combat stuff with characters you do actually care about stabbing people with, this is fine. It doesn't win any wars with the story. It's got some weird quirks in it where I wish other characters and story were more important or impressive, but it kills 12 or it kills 15 or 20 hours, right? It's not the biggest East game ever. It's not the worst, but there's also just this sense that you kind of wish there was more to it, which they might fix. So would I recommend East 10? Pretty much only to a fan, really. Like, if anybody is never a fan, just play 8. Like, play 8. It's like going into, like, maybe what it'll end up doing is if you play 8, it'll kill the rest of the franchise, because that's what it sounds like it does to me. But, like, that's the high watermark. So that's it. But if you're going to become a fan of something, you're going to come into it because of the best one, right? And then experience the other ones. So, I mean, East 10 is fine. But that's about all I can say. But that'll do for this week. I recorded this kind of in alert, so I might have rambled a bit more than certain things. I wasn't planning on doing this for another couple weeks. But, like I said, I had to move Toilet Bound Hanako-kun to a different week so that the season can finish, so I can get a more expansive and thorough view of what they're going to do, because there's still stuff they could do in the last couple of episodes that'll be like, oh shit, that changes everything. Or they just end on a good note. Speaking of anime, going into November, I'm going to be talking about Zenshu. I love saying that word, Zenshu. Speaking of games that were weird, Vagrant story, and then I'll be talking about Gangsta in December. So, I'll call it here for today, and I'll see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.